So I want to talk today about heavy metals and environmental toxins. So this is a really important subject that's largely being ignored by the medical system, but it has such a profound effect on our health. So I got into this because my health was largely affected by toxicity. And this was many years ago when we was only just starting to see the beginnings of what you would call an ME case. So somebody with quite severe chronic fatigue and other issues like joint pain, sleep issues. If you have a collection of symptoms that, there was no clear diagnosis for, you would be under an ME umbrella. But I never went as far as that. I just delved into research to work it all out and navigate it myself. My doctor's solution to my problem was to introduce me to antidepressants, which I thought was a really sad situation because, as I explained to him, I feel very, very sick. I'm not depressed, but there just didn't seem any route for me to be taken. So, and looking back, I would say my problem started with interventions that started in my younger days. So there was a lot of dental work involved. So there was a chain of events that led to my downfall. So there was a huge amount of dental work, a mouthful of amalgam fillings, which we now know. I mean, most people are aware that, that's just not a good idea. As a teenager, I developed a really bad acne. I went to the GP. The GP prescribed me very powerful antibiotics. And the familiar saying now is antibiotics, anti-life. So I started taking anti-life tablets, and I was very rarely checked up on by my GP. My GP left, another one took over. I carried on with these repeat prescriptions for many years. And believe it or not, 10 years went by. So I got into my 20s, decided that I didn't want to take these tablets anymore. My gut was in a really bad way. I went on to have root canals, wisdom teeth removed. I developed cavitations. I got pregnant, which was for some reason badly affected my health. And then when I was 5 months pregnant, I was persuaded to have laser surgery to remove so-called precancerous cells. A few weeks later, I went into labor and I gave birth prematurely to a little boy. And he ended up in ICU for 2 months. I later had breast implants, which I was told were safe. They're not. And I had some more interventions. So pretty much along my journey, all my problems stemmed from interventions, not my health breaking down. So this led to a sort of bit of an awakening. I was already waking up to sort of natural health and sort of doing my research. And I discovered heavy metal detoxing. I discovered that toxicity is at the root of many, many, many illnesses. And I just became very fascinated by the subject. And I started experimenting with heavy metal detoxing. I got all my amalgam fillings out. And when I did a successful round or a good protocol, I just felt amazing. I felt that it was the key to health and vitality. But unfortunately, I wasn't under a practitioner, and I made a lot of mistakes and made myself very sick just by detoxing. So that's how powerful it can be. So I've been pretty much obsessed by heavy metals ever since, and I constantly study and now help other people sort of detox from toxins. And so the good news is nowadays it's a little bit easier than it was a few years ago. And you can just make some simple changes in your lifestyle. You can not only start to eradicate some of the damage that's already been done, but you can start reducing the daily exposure and prevent problems later on. You can release energy, you can sleep better, and you can just generally enjoy better health. So I'm just going to share my screen and just go through a little bit about toxins and, you know, where they are, what they do, and ways that we can start sort of find solutions to eradicate them from our bodies. I'm just going to read a medical disclaimer, even though I'm not promoting a protocol, as this is just to err on the side of caution. So information is provided for educational purposes only, not intended as medical advice or a substitute for the advice of a qualified healthcare professional. I do not aim to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any illness or disease. You should always consult with your doctor for medical advice. Thanks, you. Sorry, slideshow. So where do these toxins come from? Well, heavy metals and toxicity in environments started with the Industrial Revolution, where they were releasing waste and other particulate matter into the soil, and that was seeping into the water system. And even though industry is better regulated now, it's still a problem. In fact, it's getting worse every year. So when I looked up the figures, it changes quite a lot, but we know that there are roughly 144,000 chemicals and toxins in existence. They're not all being used. We're using around 45,000 chemicals, which is a whopping figure. And industry seems to think it's okay to keep developing new types of toxins and chemicals, even if they're not being used. So it's worth doing your research and looking into this stuff. It's, you know, everything we do, touch, or even the air we breathe contains environmental toxins. So the occupational hazards one is quite an interesting one. So you might want to ask yourself a few questions to start with. So one might be, have I ever had mercury amalgams, dental implants? Have I worked with toxic substances? You know, have I worked in industry or factories? Or as this image shows, hairdressers even, you know, you're handling chemicals all day and breathing in the vapor. There's so many occupations which it might not have occurred to you where you can get exposed to quite serious toxins. And even at low exposure, they start to accumulate in the blood and the organs, and they can just build up over time. Some of us are better detoxers than others and can tolerate these toxins, but you know, over time your detox pathways get blocked up, and your liver and your kidneys are not able to eliminate as much as they could when you're younger. I've got a slide on personal care just to show you an example of how many there are that we put on our skin and you know, handle every day. Travel is another one. So obviously you've got fumes from flying and planes, cars, components in cars. There's rubber mats, there's the filters in our dashboards, the trims, the particulate matter that comes off the tires that are getting burnt and worn down every day. I mean, so many things that you just don't think about. On the travel one, when it comes to aerospace, I'm in touch with a lady who was an air hostess for many years, and she had to leave her job, retire early because of sickness. And she's been campaigning for many years about aerotoxicity. So a lot of this information is now coming out. I mean, even the Daily Mail reported on the problem a few months ago. So they do actually share and drip feed this information. It's out there, but we've just got to look for it. The food supply is an obvious one, you know, tinned food, fish. Did you know the sliced cheese that people like in their burgers, their takeaway burgers, that is actually loaded with aluminium, unfortunately. Tea, you know, breakfast tea. We need to check our sources because there's aluminium in tea, and then the longer it's steeped in hot water, the worse it can be. So you can opt for organic tea, you can opt for organic foods, but organic foods are tested for pesticides. They're not tested for heavy metals. So, you know, tinned food's the obvious one you want to reduce in your diet. You want to be cooking from scratch. You know, processed foods, cereals, they're all loaded with various toxins, including aluminium, mercury, lead. There's arsenic in chicken feed, and so therefore that goes down, you know, is passed down to the egg. You know, it's just in everything. So I don't really want to fearmonger here. I'm just sort of pointing out where you need to be looking. You need to be looking at the labels, checking your sources, and just reducing the ones that are most laden with the worst toxins and heavy metals. So what are heavy metals? Heavy metals have a density. So they things like aluminium, mercury, lead, cadmium, they're all mostly neurotoxins. Most of them are carcinogens. They cause respiratory problems. Aluminium, I don't know if you know, it's linked to neurological issues like Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's. You know, these metals, they cross the brain, the blood-brain barrier. So if you're thinking about the way we eat, you know, the sort of drinks we have, the water supply, the air we breathe, and the things that we touch, you know, we jump in our cars and, you know, we're in toxic environments, you can see kind of where the problem starts to build up. And you know, things like lead, we've had lead pipes in the past, but, you know, how many of us got old properties with the lead pipes still there? Or, you know, the lead soldering that's been used for years around copper piping. Another one is DIY that people might not think about. So if I do DIY, I tend to do it in the summer because you need ventilation. If you're sanding walls or you're preparing old walls with old paint or any substance, even the new stuff, you know, you can get low toxin paints and preparation now, but still there's, you know, these things, they don't have biological functions in the body. So you want to be wearing masks and, you know, ventilating when you're doing work, if you're doing a lot of sanding, things like that. The water supply, I mean, it's not enough now to just sort of filter your water. I mean, Brita jugs are just not going to be doing it. They're not going to filter out all the heavy metals. They don't filter out, you know, certain bacteria and fluoride. So I use a distiller. I mean, people love the distillers. Some people love their Berkeys. It's personal choice, but I've been using a distiller now for 8 years and I really wouldn't use anything else. It's the only way to get, in my opinion, the most pure water. Some people love their Kangans. I've not tried it, so, you know, I've heard they're really good. You can easily test your water. So this is something everyone should do. Get a TDS meter, which you can buy on Amazon for about £10, and dip that into your distilled water or your bottled water and compare it to your tap water. And I think you'll be quite surprised. The reading will show you a parts per million reading. So it's parts, particles of, you know, rocks, salt, you know, pieces of particles that are not meant to be there, basically. You might find the tap water reads around 250. Your bottled water will read around 80 to 90. And distilled water always reads 0. It's 0. So, you know, do your own tests and research at home. So what are some of the common symptoms of heavy metal toxicity? So if you're presenting with a strange array of symptoms and you're not getting a diagnosis, and like me, blood tests are showing up as normal. I had so many doctors say to me, there's nothing wrong with you. Your blood tests are normal, which was quite an insult, really, because I didn't look well, I didn't feel well, and I was telling them I wasn't well, but they wasn't listening to me. And, you know, fast forward 10 years, and I'm now seeing a tsunami of women mainly coming forward and in describing the exact same thing that I was going through, where they just don't know what's wrong. But nobody's sleeping well. Everybody's got chronic fatigue. Even if we do get to sleep, we wake up exhausted. It's very common now for people to be able to get to sleep, but they can't fall into a deep sleep. And even if they do, they'll just wake up a couple of hours later. So it's epidemic levels now. And quite often that is toxicity. Weight loss was something I suffered really badly as well. So I couldn't keep weight on my body because my system was constantly revved up. And I later discovered sensitivities like electrosensitivity, which is talked about a little bit more now, which is good. And the symptoms are very, very similar. So you're triggering your adrenal glands to produce stress hormones because your body thinks you're under stress. And actually it's a toxicity, or it's the environmental other toxins like EMFs. So your metabolism is being constantly speeded up. So hence the weight loss. And as you can imagine, if you're being speeded up, revved up, you know, your body's not in a relaxed state, you're going to feel anxious and irritable. Your circulation is going to be out of whack. You're going to feel quite anxious and, you know, some people quite depressed. And it's so common now. We're getting so many mental health issues. And you've got to ask yourself, you know, is it mentally, are we out of balance, or is our body and our gut out of balance? So if we fix the root cause, get the gut balanced and healthy, then we should start to feel a little happier, a little bit more positive, and feel motivated and get our energy back. This is another one as well. Heavy metals cause inflammation. So they might sit dormant in the joints for a while, but after a while, you know, there's an inflammatory response, and there you get sort of heat activation in the joint, or it might be an all over body temperature problem. So night sweats, that could be your immune system is trying to heal itself, but there's things blocking it. So these heavy metals, there's so many problems they can cause. There's so many places they can sit in the soft tissue, in the bone. Lead is known to sit in the bone and starts to leach as we hit our 50s. It stops the absorption of calcium, so therefore you've got your osteoporosis. Digestive problems, heavy metals, particularly mercury, likes to sit in the gut. So I had this problem. I was doing a process of elimination many years ago, and I started using digestive enzymes and boosting my stomach acid. That was a big breakthrough, which kind of led me to, well, if I can do that one, then what is the problem? Why is it out of balance? You know, for a lot of us, we start looking in the cabinets or the health food shops and start picking out different supplements to treat different issues. But really, we've got to go to the root cause and try and move away from putting loads of things into our body, when really we need to take the toxins out, improve our absorption levels, and and be able to absorb the nutrients from all the lovely food that we're cooking for ourselves. You know, you've got to make way for that and prepare the body. So it's get the toxins out, then perhaps focus on the diet. So when I saw this quote, I was absolutely blown away. Perhaps the World Health Organization started out with amazing intentions, because they actually published this report in 1974, saying that 82% of diseases are caused by toxins. So, I mean, that's just crazy when you think about it. This is just a snapshot of care products. And this is not just women, because many men are using personal products now. They're using loads of products on their hair. You know, they've been encouraged to use different moisturizers. You can find aluminium fluoride in toothpastes, fragrances, absolutely loaded. I've got a friend who's she knows a lot about fragrances, and she says that there's 300 chemicals in one perfume. And she's got multiple chemical sensitivities. So that's very common now. Multiple chemical sensitivities, or MCS, was, no one had heard of that sort of 10, 20 years ago. But, you know, it's quite a common condition now, not recognised by the medical system. So these are just examples of types of interventions, should we say, that might cause some problems. So mercury amalgams is the obvious one. Breast implants, they're absolutely loaded with heavy metals. Any implants like that in the cosmetic industry. Formaldehyde is one of the ingredients. Acetone, some really nefarious things in there. But there is some work being done by different groups to raise awareness of these awful toxins and ingredients, and to just make people aware and just sort of steer clear. Something's really got to be done about that industry. Antibiotics. Now, I've seen experiments where antibiotics have been melted down, and there's heavy metals or some sort of substances like iron oxide that have been found in either in the capsule or in the powder itself. Contraception, the contraception pill and IUDs contain copper. So there you have high exposure to copper, which is not a good thing. Mercury's been found in eye drops and ear drops and nose sprays. Gadolinium, which is the contrast that people take when they have certain scans. If you're not sure about that one, just go onto YouTube and search gadolinium case studies or class action. There's a lot of activity around gadolinium. People are starting to realize that it's actually not a substance you want to be putting in your body. Vaccines is another one, obviously, and supplements. So even the natural sector has not escaped this. We know it's not obviously a good idea to go onto Amazon and just randomly pick supplements. We really need to do our homework. Check the sources of the brands that you're using, because I've seen an experiment with a vitamin D capsule, which was very similar to the antibiotic capsule, and there was iron oxide found in there. So you're taking a supplement to make you feel well, and you're probably contaminating yourself more than before you started. So these are just examples of some of the groups that are on Facebook, and if you didn't know they were there, you wouldn't be able to find them. But the breast implant illness, for one, has got over 13,000 people in there. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It took me years, even with my studies, to realize that the implants were part of my problem and I had to remove them. So there's a lot of people seeking help. Aerotoxic syndrome, I came across that because of the lady I mentioned. So the airline industry is, they know about this problem, but then they're not kind of doing anything about it. So the press have reported on it. there are many, many pilots and cabin crew who have suffered toxicity symptoms and issues, including tumours and cancers, and, you know, at the very least, chronic fatigue where they've had to leave their jobs. So that's something you can look up. You'll find some news articles on that. And toxic teeth, there's a website called Mercury Free Dentistry, and there's a directory on there. So if you're looking for a holistic dentist, try there first, because they've got a small list, but they're all over the country. And just a note on dental work, because I know a bit about dental work, and I work with a retired holistic dentist, helping people with dental issues. And she now teaches people not to rush to get your amalgams out. So there are a lot of people a bit of kind of obsessed about their amalgams and wanting to get them out. My advice would be, and from my colleagues, is to, for now, just leave them be and just detox your body from the residual and excess exposure, because it can be problematic taking them out. She had all hers removed and I had all mine removed, and I would say that it was not an easy process, and in some cases you can make yourself more ill. So if they're compacted and they're safe and they're not broken, then just leave them as they are. So on my journey of detoxing, I realized there's this powerful link between heavy metal detoxing or heavy metal toxicity and EMFs. So I realized that on top of my problems with metals and toxicity, I'm also very sensitive to EMFs. I used to work in a really high-tech office, and I think the decade 2010 to 2020 was a very important one for technology, because that's when we were really ramping it up in terms of iPhones and iPads and, you know, gadgets and devices that we are consenting to have in the home. And when the penny dropped for me, I realized that it didn't matter how much I detox, and what progress I made. I literally lost my job. I lost everything. I had to move in with my parents and spent 2 years trying to get back on my feet. And then it took me another 3 years to be kind of functioning normally, if you like, moving back to my home. It didn't matter how much I detoxed, how much I knew, and how clever I got at it. It wasn't until I removed some EMF exposure that I took my health to another level. And this is something we all need to be doing, because if not just for us, but for our children, EMFs are causing oxidative stress. And if you know, the industry wants us to believe there's no effect on the body, there's enough studies out there to prove that not only is that it's causing chronic fatigue and other issues, but you know, technology is moving at a really fast rate, so we need to be ahead of the game. So it's interesting to see that all of these symptoms are pretty much similar and in line with heavy metal toxicity. Moving on. Don't know why. Oh, this is a colleague put this together, and you can see the exposures on this side and this side, and the biological effects on the body in the center. I'm not going to read it all out, but it's just, if anyone wants this presentation, just email me. But there's some interesting conditions and biological effects here that you might not have actually thought about, and how they're interlinked. So just to move on to solutions, like easy things that we can do, so many things that we can change to our daily routine to make our situation better. So I'd always say start with purifying your water. So, you know, it's a distiller, or at the very least, there's reverse osmosis, and just do your research and just do whatever is financially available to you, or, you know, the best you can possibly do. And then just start swapping out your personal care products, your kitchen products for natural, homemade. You know, I started making my homemade products and sprays and everything some years ago, and it's just so easy, and it's cheaper, and it's safer. So if you start using natural sprays around your home, it's safer for children and babies and your animals. You know, if your animals are licking the floor, I don't really want them to be licking, you know, bleach. And it's just a much nicer environment. Obviously, do some research on the highest level toxicity foods, and just either remove them from your diet or just reduce them down. You know, we can't take out everything. We can't get away from it completely, but we can, you know, reduce the toxic burden so our immune system can get stronger, and be able to deal with, you know, if we hit October, November and come down with a cold, let your body focus on the infection and getting well. I mean, our livers have just got so many jobs to do. The toxicity isn't its priority. You know, it's filtering the blood, it's fending off coughs and colds, and, you know, so many other things. We don't really want to be compounding health issues through the winter. And just some tips here on low EMF living. So these are really simple things you can do. Again, you're taking the burden and pressure and stress of the body. Sleep is just so important. We all know that. But if you don't reduce your EMF through the night, your body's not actually going to be resting properly. So if you can't get away from exposure during the day, if you could just turn everything off at night, including your router, it won't harm it, and it will just spring back on in the morning and be absolutely fine. It will work perfectly. I've been doing it for years. And if possible, the best thing you can do at home is cable up, is hardwire your computer, hardwire everything. Even, you know, we don't need Wi-Fi. We basically don't need Wi-Fi. I mean, we've got our TV, which we don't watch, but we use our main computer through in the lounge. That's all cabled up. I've got a separate office that's cabled up, and if you don't like the cables, you can get a telecoms engineer in to just fix them through the walls for you, because they know the best way to go around it, and put an Ethernet socket in the rooms where you're going to use it. And you know, you've only got to do it once. It's like going back to, you know, the early 2000s, because that's what we were doing then before Wi-Fi. And then things like shielded clothing I use when I'm traveling, or if I'm in a high exposed area. And you can get better. You can, you know, you can tolerate a lot more of this stuff if you're really careful and just make some of these smaller changes. And in combination with that, there's just some tips on heavy metal detoxing. So again, distilled water has magnetic properties of its own. So I started with a distilled water fast, and fasting is not for everybody, but I was able to take the edge off it, if you like, take out some of the harder toxins from a 3-day fast, just by drinking a gallon a day. And then I just went from there, changed my diet, and did some proper heavy metal detoxing. These are things that I found really powerful and really useful when I was detoxing. There's so many things, once you go down the rabbit hole, there's so many things that people recommend, and I made a lot of mistakes, including things like juicing. You know, you think juicing is and herbs, you think they are quite innocent and easy everyday things to do. But you can combine certain fruits and vegetables that can really irritate your gut, or, you know, aggravate your adrenals. And if your adrenals are already quite weak, and we're all under stress, whether we think it or not, we're all under stress, and those adrenals are kind of pumping out their cortisol on a daily basis. So as much as we can, we need to reduce any risk of an inflammatory state, any inflammatory response. So I don't juice anymore, because even if you're doing a simple juice like, I don't know, apples and celeries, there's still the issue of toxicity in the foods. So celery is one of the worst. So again, take the toxins out and just be very mindful of things that you're putting in your body. Like if you know you're in known exposure, if you're restaurant eating, or you think you've eaten something that's loaded with something, you don't feel quite well, you can use charcoal, but not on a regular basis. That's an on-the-spot one. And just do whatever you can to support your liver. So look up foods and herbs and supplements that might support your liver, and keep your lymph moving. Inversion tables are amazing. You just lay on the inversion table and you can swing on them. You don't have to go upside down, but you can move your lymph around and not have to go for a run, and feel amazing. So it's just, little things that you can do. Reduce your EMF exposure is absolutely essential. And if you do some of these things, these are the benefits that you might expect. So better sleep, we all need more energy, be able to focus. When things start improving, and you feel less toxic, you will feel less anxiety. These metals, if you feel like you've got a huge amount of chatter in your head, that you can't quiet your mind, that is toxicity usually. Once they start to come out, everything should start to calm down. Your hormones will regulate better. You won't get so many hot sweats. I mean, I don't get any menopausal issues at all, and 55 next month. So I do feel that a lot of that is toxicity, and weight loss as well, which is a surprising one. So when it comes to stubborn weight, the body's quite intelligent. It's protecting, usually using the fat to encapsulate the toxins to protect your vital organs. A lot of people find when they do heavy metal detoxing, when the fat disperses, it's because the toxins are coming out. So once the toxins are gone, the fat isn't needed, and particularly around the belly. So, and less joint pain in general, and reduced allergies. So that's got to be a good thing. So yeah, sometimes it can require patience, and some people are lucky and they'll find very fast responses to just eliminating some of these everyday toxins, and eating cleaner, drinking more water, and just swapping out different things, not drinking so much tea and coffee. And that's it.